Okay, I had a pretty cool question from someone recently on the website, a member of the website. He was asking how to gap your wedges. And I think it's a pretty cool topic. I specifically, if you've seen some of my What's in the Bag videos, you know that I play essentially the same length with all of my wedges. And the reason is because I want roughly the same swing for all of my wedges. So in the square to square method, obviously we're setting the handle as close to impact at address. We're setting the handle as close to impact as we can. And so the idea there is to just get set up in our impact position, and then when we turn back and turn through, the club's going to come back pretty close to that. So if I've got like half-inch gaps or quarter-inch gaps between all of my wedges, then that's creating some variability, and I just don't think we need any variability in our wedges. So the first step is to get all of the lengths, for me at least, to get all of my lengths from my pitching wedge to lob wedge consistent. And with that, I want all of my lie angles to be close, almost the same in that whole set. Now, if I'm making fuller swings with my pitching wedge, let's say I'm actually making some full swings with my pitching wedge where I'll hit it something like 140 yards, there's going to be some shaft dynamics that are going to come into play. So definitely get with a club fitter if you're going to do this, because the shaft will droop a little bit at higher club head speeds if it's not specifically designed to stay at that or to support that speed. Or it may not droop if you have really stiff shafts, whereas a lot of people in their wedges have wedge shafts. I play the same exact shaft flex and length and everything and lie angle in all my wedges specifically for that purpose. So number one, get the lengths consistent, get the shafts consistent, get just those clubs consistent. I'm going to keep saying that word because the more we can use consistency in our set or in our equipment, the easier it's going to be consistent as a player. So that's number one. Number two, if you have access to a launch monitor, this can make it so much easier on you. If you don't have access to a launch monitor, then it's going to be kind of challenging to know exactly how far each ball went. You're going to have different conditions, like a little bit of wind maybe, cold one day, warm the next. So definitely try to do this on a launch monitor. Number three, use the same ball every time. So if I'm hitting a Pro V1X and it's got a really grippy cover and the ball launches at, with my 60 or my 58, let's say, it launches at 26 degrees or 27 degrees. Sorry, actually my 58 launches at about 29 degrees. So if I'm launching my 60 or my 58 at 29 degrees with a Pro V1X, if I use a pinnacle or a range ball, it's going to launch higher. So you can imagine it's like hitting a pop fly or a line drive. The pop fly is going to go up and come down shorter, where the line drive is going to go out and land a little bit farther. So we can't necessarily get those gaps figured out if we use different balls. So get the whole set lined up consistently where you want it, all at the same lengths, whether that's to your pitching wedge length or maybe a little bit shorter like your gap wedge length. Get all the flexes and the lofts and the lies, get all the flexes and the lies consistent. Then use a launch monitor, something that can actually give you detailed results every single time, and then use a consistent ball when you're gapping your wedges. And then after that, it's just pretty logical. Let's say you're hitting your 60-degree wedge 90 yards, and then you're hitting your 56-degree wedge or 55-degree wedge 100 yards, and then you're hitting your gap wedge 110, then your pitching wedge should be 120. So we should have equal gaps. They don't have to be big. They don't necessarily have to be a certain number, they just need to be equal. And depending on the player's swing speed, those gaps will be longer or shorter. So if you have a slower club head speed, then your gaps are going to be smaller. If you have a faster club head speed, your gaps are going to be a little bit wider. So those are the big things in figuring out your gaps. If I'm just going to make a blanket suggestion, I would say play everything to pitching wedge length. I would play all your wedge shafts the same shaft as you have in your pitching wedge, or turn your pitching wedge into your wedge shafts. I would play all the same lie angle as your pitching wedge. Obviously, you're going to be playing that length, so it should be the same lie angle. And then I would say your gaps should be something like 5 degrees. So if your pitching wedge is 45, then your next wedge should be 50, then your next wedge 55, your next wedge 60. So 5-degree gaps between each one should give you enough variability that you've got consistent gaps, but gaps that are meaningful. If those wedge lofts get a little bit smaller, like let's say we do 4-degree lofts or 3-degree lofts changes, so if you went like from 54 to 57 to 60, you'd have small gaps in between each one of your wedges, so it just wouldn't cover as much range. You might actually have to add a wedge in there to cover the range. And again, for consistency purposes, the simpler, the smaller, the less I can think about things, the better. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. Getting everything in your equipment as consistent as possible, and then having and measuring that on a launch monitor, using the consistent ball each time so you get consistent results, and then having good gaps between each wedge. So 45, 50, 55, 60 is what I recommend for most players.